All right, so now we're going to continue what we've been working on, where we are going to do the yo form, drop the o, add the opposite ending. But things happen a little bit differently whenever we have a stem changing verb. So as you can see, here's pensar, first one here, pensar. Pensar is it's a stem changing verb. It becomes pienso in the yo form. Good. We're going to drop the o. We'll be left with this. And it's an AR verb, so when we add the opposite ending, it ends up like that, which is good. That's exactly what we want. As you can see, we've got piense here, and it's piense there. That's how it works out. Now, that's how it works for AR verbs. That's how it's going to work for ER verbs. We're going to see an exception, though, when we get to IR verbs. But let's still stick to what pensar right now. Now, remember that this is still a present tense conjugation. Even though we're not in the indicative now, still present tense. And in the present tense, we have stem changing verbs. And they stem change in most forms, but not all forms. So I'm sure you remember that the verbs, the present tense indicative, stem change in the boot, in the yo form, in the tu form, in the el form, ella, usted, and in the ellos, ellas, and ustedes form. But it does not change in the nosotros and the vosotros. So if you're following along on my cursor, you also would have noticed the same thing happens in the subjunctive. When we do our stem change, you see it happens here in the yo, it happens here in the tu, it happens here in the el, usted, and it happens here in the ellos, ellas, and ustedes. But it doesn't happen on the E of the nosotros, nor the E of the vosotros. So just like we do in the present tense, we have a stem changing verb in the boot only. Now, where that's a little bit weird from our other subjunctive conjugations is that we are no longer going to completely follow the drop the O of the yo form rule. Because if we went to pienso, like we've got here, if we went to pienso and then we drop the O, like right here, and then we added the opposite ending, we would have hemos at the end, pensemos, we would see that doesn't match up. That's not correct with what we have right here. So there's an exception to that rule. Now, let me go and show you a little bit more. Let's see. So as we we're just talking about with our stem for AR verbs, as I said, the same thing happens with ER verbs. And it doesn't matter what stem change it is, if it's E to IE or the only U to UE, O to UE. And here's another E to IE with entender. It's an ER verb. We can still see it happens here in the yo form, tu form, la usted. But here, we don't stem change in nosotros, nor do we stem change in the vosotros. For the IR verbs now. Now, this E here is going to change to an I in the yo form, in the tu form, in the la usted. Remember, this is an E to I stem changing verb because you see it's an E to I stem changer. A little bit different than the other ones we've been working with. E to I only happens with IR verbs. But again, yo, tu, la usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes. So it's still stem changes in the boot. However, we also have a change of E to I in the nosotros form and the vosotros form. So this is where we're going to have our first difference with the stem changing verbs. Normally stem changing verbs only happen in the boot. That's still true with AR verbs and ER verbs. But with IR verbs, we are also going to stem change in the nosotros y vosotros form. When we have sentir, another IR verb, this is an E to IE stem changer. So in the boot, we're going to have sienta, sientas, sienta, and sientan. Those are the boot conjugations. Now, we also have another difference where our stem doesn't go to E to IE like it does in the other forms. It just goes E to I. That's the single letter change that happens in the preterite as well. It's the same one that's going to happen here. Just another rule you have to remember whenever you have an IR verb, that's a stem changer. It's only going to have a stem change of one letter in nosotros and vosotros. I mean, that's another rule you have to remember is the fact that an IR verb in nosotros and vosotros stem change in those forms, which it normally wouldn't. It's the only time this will happen in the subjunctive, the present subjunctive. So here we've got sintamos, not sientamos. We don't stem change E to IE. It's just E to I in nosotros and as well E to I in the vosotros. But still E to IE in the other forms. Same thing is true with O to UE, like duerma. We got O to UE, O to UE in duermas, O to UE in duerma, and O to UE in duerman in the boot. But if we go to nosotros, we'll still have a stem change, but just O to U, dormamos and dormáis, in the vosotros, O to U. Now, just another rule you have to remember. I know it's not that easy, but it's still going to be important. Now, one other thing I want to point out is when we have an E to I stem changing verb like pedir, again, E to I is only going to happen with IR verbs. So whenever you have a stem changing verb in the subjunctive, in the present subjunctive, you are going to stem change in the boot. But if it's an IR verb, which all E to I verbs are, you are going to also have to stem change in nosotros and vosotros. But E to I actually gives us a little bit of help. They're a little bit easier because an E to I stem changing verb actually still follows our yo form rule. So if we were to conjugate pedir in the yo form of the present tense indicative, it's pido. If you drop the O of the end, it's an IR verb, you add the opposite ending, we get pida, we get pidas, we get pida, we get pidamos, we get pidáis, and and we get pidan. Now, those match up perfectly, these conjugations right here, with the 6 forms that we have up there. So we've got pida, pidas, pida, pidamos, pidáis, pidan. It follows the rules. So E to I stem changing verbs will just go, you can do your yo form, drop the yo rule, and get your conjugations perfectly. Or you can do your, just stem change in the boot, and then do a single letter stem change in nosotros and vosotros, and you'll end up with the same product regardless. So gonna get some more practice on this. I'm gonna keep building up. Got a couple more things to go through before we've covered all those special conjugations in the present tense of the subjunctive.